What's up, guys? Leyton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again for another breakdown. The giveaway is available, so follow the on-screen instructions. And just before we get into this card, I want to say I appreciate so many people, man, coming forward on the last breakdown and supporting me. You all know that situation, and just the support, man, from this little community that's just growing and growing and growing every breakdown. You know who you are. There's so many of you, and you're just quality people, man. And that is why I love doing these breakdowns with Brooks as well. So yeah, growing a beautiful little community, and appreciate you all, man. Thank you.
And welcome to episode 36 of UFC Addicts. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Leyton, and we are here to break down the latest UFC card. This being UFC 239 from Las Vegas, Nevada, taking place at T-Mobile Arena. The main event is this guy, John Bones Jones. He's pretty good at MMA. He's fighting Thiago Santos for the 205 title, along with Holly Holm fighting Amanda Nunes for the 135-pound bantamweight title, and also the featured fight being Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal, kind of the fan favorite fight, which is becoming kind of the slot for the third fight. This is episode 36 of UFC Addicts. Fun fact, UFC 36 took place at the MGM Grand. The main event was Josh Barnett versus Randy Couture at heavyweight. Josh Barnett won by KO, and also Matt Hughes fought Hayate Sakurai for the welterweight title. And after that long intro, here's my co-host Lane, the person you're all here to hear. What up?
What's up, bro? Okay, so I don't want to recap too much. The picks from the last card were very decent. If there's going to be anyone that I recap, you've guessed it, it's my boy Vince Pichel. I took him on the breakdown. I said third round he's going to get a finish, and he was so close to getting that finish. The choke looked, real tight. And he said after the fight, like he heard him gagging when he was choking him. But really decent performance. Francis Ngannou is just Francis Ngannou. When he puts hands on you, you go down, you cover up, or you look like Francis, Alistair Overeem. So decent card. Yeah, have you got anything to say about your boys, Townsend, Roberts?
Yeah, it was a very good card. I'll just stick to the co-main event. I'll leave all my unkind words on the cutting room floor before the podcast. So sorry, I'm gonna keep it positive here. I'll just focus on the most underrated fighter in any division, pound for pound, Joseph Benavidez. Shout out to this guy. He's unbelievable to me. A lot of the chatter going into the fight was he didn't look very engaged at the weigh-ins, which I didn't see too much of, but other people, I've heard from multiple people that, and that Formiga was going to make adjustments. He looked much better since switching to ATT. Benavidez is kind of just doesn't have it in him anymore. All the usual things that, a lot of which was said about Vince Pichel and other fighters. But yeah, Joseph Benavidez has lost to three guys in his time at between 125 and 135, and all of which are very decent, and all of which were pretty close fights.
Mm-hmm. He is still one of the best 125ers, and he deserves it. He deserves that shot.
He deserves the shot at the last guy to beat Henry Cejudo, which is Joseph Benavidez. Henry Cejudo had made multiple claims that he would have no problem defending both belts. Let's see him fight at 125. I think he beats Benavidez. That division really is closed at that point.
Mm-hmm. It's a good fight.
It's a great fight, and it's a fight that if I were picking it today, I think I would be leaning towards Benavidez. So it probably means Cejudo would win, just because it would probably be a main event. And I did get another main event wrong this week. I won't talk about it too long, but I trusted JDS's speed and thought he would adjust his hands a little bit, and I was wrong. He was not too quick, and his hands were down. And he got He did get hit hard. Last 2 shots were straight to the back of the head, but the fight was over. But still, 2 shots that ended the fight were both to the back of the head. On an LFA fight on Friday, that cost me a bet. So it's just interesting to me when the back of the head shots are really, truly enforced. Same with the spiking rule, which I also don't exactly understand fully at this point.
Well, imagine being a ref though, yeah, and you're in the cage with Francis Ngannou. He knocks down his opponent, and he's just ferocious. I'd be so scared to be like, hey, you hit the back of the head there, by the way. Like,
I get it.
Francis would just like, I'm ready to go with you, ref. Like, he's a scary man.
That's why you need Leon Roberts or Dan Miragliotta or
Mark Goddard
for all heavyweight main events, especially, but heavyweight fights in general. I don't understand why they're putting in slight refs for those kind of fights, but either way, I didn't want to dip into the negativity too much. Congratulations to Vince. I was more than impressed by his performance coming off of a big motorcycle accident, which wasn't even mentioned in the promotion. You can really see with the UFC sometimes the guys who work for them that they don't care to support. And Vince was in the last fight of his contract. I hope he gets paid, and I hope he gets some respect. And there's a lot of guys on that card who I think are going to do some big things. So, and enough about that card. You did edge me out 3-2 in disagreements. Didn't get swept this week though.
It was close.
So, yeah, I mean, but at this point, season 1 of this little competition we have, it appears that you're going to be champion. So,
well, I'm 15 ahead now, so I've opened a real good lead.
Yeah. But anyways, the fights this weekend looks like a pretty decent card. I am very frustrated on behalf of Chito Vera. They somehow were not able to find a replacement for him with multiple weeks' notice. And at this point, I would assume he's off the card, even though last night it still had him on the card versus TBD. I would assume at this point he's off, but if he's on, that all the credit in the world to him, because there's no way I would be taking a fight at this point. So
I mean, it's unfair on the opponent as well. Like, you look at Townsend last night. He, first round, that fast, quick, snapping, powerful jab. But 6 days notice, and he's fighting out of his division, and it's a good opportunity to really put your name out there, like Alexander Hernandez. But if it doesn't go your way, it's unfair. But I'm sure the UFC pays whoever stepping in good money, and they're probably happy to take the chance. But it's 6 days out.
And I mean, Townsend did get a multiple fight UFC contract. So, anyways, let's jump into this pay-per-view card. It's taking place on July 6th over in Las Vegas, as I said. And we will start at the 135 division, correct?
Yeah.
This is at bantamweight? Okay. Between Julia Avila, I don't really know how I pronounce her. I'll say Julia Avila, actually. I thought there was a U in there, sorry. I don't know too much about her. I'll look forward to your breakdown. Versus Pani Kianzad. Who's stepping in on late short notice. She's 11-4, has a whopping 1 TKO. And she was runner-up on her season of The Ultimate Fighter, where she got subbed in round 2 by Macy Chiesa. Macy, as she has in all her performances in the octagon, looked really good in that fight. One thing I do definitely respect and value about Pani is that she's faced a solid level of competition throughout her MMA career. She's lost a good amount of those fights, but still has gotten some good experience. She did beat Lena Landsberg early on. But yeah, she had a loss against Evinger, loss against Sarah Kaufman, and against Macy. So she's faced some of the bigger gals at 135. Definitely, I think in this fight, she won't have to worry about that quite as much, but I think the striking may be where she has a little bit of trouble. She typically looks to mix up her grappling with her striking, Pani Kianzad, that is. And she tries to establish top control. When she's not able to do that, she struggles. And I think in Avila, She may struggle to get entry on those takedowns. I think Avila has some pretty good stand-up and kind of can engage her opponent into a war. So I'm going to take a decision win for Jessica Avila. I think it's going to take place mostly on the feet after some failed takedowns by Panay early.
Fair play. Okay, so Julia comes into this fight 6 wins, 1 loss as a pro. I'm being completely honest here. I don't have a read on this fight. You look at McCann and Lipsky, I got that wrong. You look at last night's Whitmire versus Rebus, I got that wrong. Any women fights at the start of the card, no matter how much I look into them and try to understand where the fight's going to go, how it's going to play out, apparently I don't have reads on them. Like I took Amanda Nunes.
Trying to understand these women, they just confuse me.
Like low level MMA for women is really hard, man. It's so unpredictable. But like I say, I took Amanda Nunes to beat Cyborg. So like when it gets a bit higher up with the level, I'm a bit better. But I'm just going to be completely honest. I have no read on this fight. I took Macy to beat Pani on the Ultimate Fighter. Pani was a favourite. I'm not sure how. Yeah, watching both of these girls, you know, I have no real read. But maybe Julia's probably more tough. She's fought like Marion Renault.
Julia.
Sorry?
My third round TKO. When I said my third round TKO, I was looking at my notes and they said third round TKO for Jessica. I meant Julia. Sorry.
Yeah, that's cool, bro. Yeah, I've got no real read. Like this is just, you know, whoever just performs better in each moment, each situation probably takes the win. But I'm not going to start with a disagreement. I'm going to take Julia via decision.
Fine. Fair enough. A perfect agreement on a perfect read of this card or that fight.
Who the hell knows with that one?
Odds are currently unavailable as Melissa Gatto was going to fight, but then she got injured or something. So they're not available. If I was betting on that fight, I'd probably just choose whoever the underdog is to put a few bucks on. I'd be out. I don't have too much of it either, so let's move on. You want to lead us into fight number 2?
We have Ismail Naurdiev versus Chance Rencountre, is it?
Rencountre.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be breaking down Naurdiev. This is my boy. I took him in his debut, plus 360 against Michel Praceres. And he's known as the Austrian Wonder Boy. And you basically see that in his style. He has that karate stance. He fires the kicks as a jab. Really, really decent movement. And surprisingly strong as well. Like in the second round against Michel Praceres, Praceres got a takedown and Dan Hardy was literally saying, you don't want to be under Michel Praceres. It's like being under a house. And literally as he finished that sentence, Naurdiev literally just reversed the position, just powered out of it and ended up on top. Really, really impressive debut. I'd say, you know, he's the more technical striker. I'd say he's a better kickboxer. That could be the difference. But Chance is a strong grappler and maybe more well-rounded. So the grappling could be the difference as well. Because I don't see Chance gassing out the way Praceres gassed out. And, you know, I highlighted that as well. If Naurdiev survives the first round, I think he takes over. But yeah, I'd say this is a harder fight, despite how good Michel Praceres is. But I'm going to stick with the striker here. I'll take Naurdiev via decision.
All right, fair enough. I will be breaking down the Black Eagle, Chance Rencountre, out of Alliance MMA. He is 6'2", so I like the size for sure, and definitely a different matchup for Naurdiev coming in compared to his debut against a 5'6" guy. 13-3 overall, 6 TKOs and 3 submissions for Chance. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Lost a decision to Bilal Muhammad in a fight where he never was really too competitive. It was a tough debut, but he just never really had much of an effort. His second appearance came against an undefeated newcomer in Kyle Stewart, who came in on short notice, and he subbed him inside a round after hurting him pretty bad. So Chance took advantage of a good situation, and he's a tough guy. He's really tall for the division, like Naurdiev. I think they're probably similar size. And he really likes to just get in there and trade. And I think he has a willing dance partner in Naurdiev, but I think Naurdiev's going to. The difference is Naurdiev's accuracy, his speed, and precision with his strikes. I think that this is going to look a lot like his debut, except I see Chance getting finished inside, probably in the second round, I'll say. So
Okay.
I'll take Naurdiev by a second round TKO, possibly a decision, but I just think that this is mostly going to be on the feet. If Rencountre starts to shoot, I anticipate Naurdiev being able to handle it.
Fair play.
So, yeah,
And we have odds
he's
for this one?
he's gone from plus 360 in his debut to minus 500 in his sophomore effort here. So,
Just crazy. That's crazy.
plus 390 for Chance Rencountre. And I would bet on that if I was betting.
I mean, that's just to be plus 360 in your debut, and then to be, upwards of minus 450 is just. I
Minus
can't
five,
believe that. I
minus
can't
five,
believe that.
five plus 390 for Chance.
Yeah, so no money's going on Naurdiev here. You highlight the plus 390 it's a insane price.
Yeah, I'm
Probably
just
worth a
saying.
few dollars, but
I'm just saying that that's my style of betting. I'm not saying that's
yeah.
and it is sometimes very lucrative and other times not.
Well,
So
like I said,
when I say something like I'd bet on that, I'm not telling anybody to go out there and bet. I'm just saying Chance Rencountre is not a 4-1 underdog to me.
yeah. So Naurdiev plus 360 in his debut against a guy here with a similar price to what he was in his debut. So I see this being much closer than those lines. Like, those lines shock me a little bit.
If Chance gets him to just kind of be sloppy and get into a brawl, that's Chance's fight.
He needs to grapple, I think.
And and his top control isn't as reliant on strength or overall heaviness as Perez's is. His is more about position and getting into submission,
Yeah,
potential submission.
fair
So
play.
that price, it's a dangerous fight to bet on. So these odds are really, as it's transferred over to ESPN, gotten kind of odd. The odds have gotten odd at points. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen a few others on this card, and I'm not
well,
impressed.
I think we're leading into one that I got a little glimpse of it as I was looking. I'll lead us into it. Edmund Shahbazyan versus Jack Marshman at 185. And I will be breaking down Edmund Shahbazyan. The 22-year-old, he's 9-0, 8 KOs, 2-0 in the UFC. So far, he's appeared to belong in the octagon. Coming off of the Contender Series win, take your shot at Apple Juice. He's been extremely aggressive throughout his fights. He did have a very close split decision win against Darren Stewart in his debut, and he followed that up with a 40-second starching of Charles Bird. So he has strong clinching strikes, good boxing, good ground and pound, good wrestling. There's nowhere where I've seen him as bad so far. He comes out and gets finishes, 8 of those being in the first, 5 of those being inside of a minute. So he doesn't ease into the fights. And that may be a statement more about his level of competition, or it could be that this kid's just really special. I tend to lean towards the latter. I think that he has a good opponent here to show whether or not he's the real deal. I think UFC gave him a showcase fight here. And I think that the experience and size of Marshman is the biggest test for Edmund in this fight. But I think he can put away Marshman. I really do. So I'm going to take Shahbazyan, and I'll take him to get the finish inside of a round.
Nice.
And I think it proves he can get to the top 15 and deserves ranked opponent next.
Decent. Okay, Jack Marshman comes into this fight 3 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. I believe he was the first Welshman to get in the UFC. He doesn't bring much other than toughness and a lot of power. And that's basically the Welsh down to a T. He's usually a boxer and just looks to box. He's not that quick, not that technical, but his boxing power is pretty serious. As far as grappling, not that good. Edmund's going to be the grappler here against a hard-hitting boxer. That's about it. But I think the grappling there's a massive difference. I think Edmund's going to be far stronger, just far more experienced in where to go in which situation when there's a grappling exchange. And I see that being the difference. I think he gets the body lock with ease. I think he gets takedowns with ease, and pretty much makes Jack work in every situation he puts him in. Looking at the Stewart fight, he gassed out badly, but he was still even able to grapple, just being so tired. And even if he gasses out here, I think he's still able to grapple with Jack Marshman. The difference is that big in the grappling department. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take Edmund Shahbazyan to get a round 1 sub. I'm going to give him a sub.
All right, fair enough. So I don't actually envision Shahbazyan resorting to his grappling unless he feels he needs to by getting 2 challenges on the feet.
Interesting.
So I see him testing his stand-up against a good stand-up fighter and beating a good stand-up player there, actually. But if he gets tagged more than a couple times, I think he'll immediately go to the grappling and be successful. So minus 680 favorite for Edmund.
That's insane. That's insane. Yep. He's very young.
Yeah, I mean, he's really young, and he has gas tank issues, and he's coming off a 38-second win, which Emily Whitmire showed us doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, odds are insane. I'm going to take Edmund, but there's no room for parlays with that price.
Yeah, these odds after shocking, impressive wins sometimes really get ridiculous. That being said, Marshman, I think, is the worst of the 3 guys that Edmund's faced in the UFC.
Exactly.
So it's I can get it, but it opened at minus 360 and it just shot up.
Yeah, it's insane. That line is insane. If anyone's putting money on it, yeah, I give you credit, but I'd love to, but there's no room for parlays with that price.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and lead us into the next fight?
Okay. 135, Alejandro Perez versus Song Yadong, or Yadong Song, however you want it. Who am I breaking down here? Yadong. Okay. Comes into this fight 3-0 inside the UFC. He's 21 years old, and he's been a pro since he was 15. Very well-rounded, just a young, up-and-coming mixed martial artist. Very modern, and just well-rounded. He can grapple. He has elbows. His combinations are, pretty nasty, quick, powerful. Just a well-rounded guy. Alejandro Perez, a nasty, nasty striker. A lot of experience on his side. He's fought a lot of good guys. Even had a good performance in his last fight, which he lost against Cody Stamann. Some people think he won that fight. Some people take Cody. It was very close.
That's a Cody Stamann fight.
Yeah, it was, this is just 2 well-rounded guys fighting each other. And there's a lot of experience on Perez's side, like I said. But Yadong has looked so impressive as well, and he's only 21. I'll be honest, looking at this card, this is the fight I'm really back and forth on because I like both guys. And it's a really tough pick. But I'm going to take Alejandro Perez. I think this is, it's a good step up in competition from Vince Morales. But, both guys are very nasty. And I could see this being very close. But I just think the experience could be the difference. I could be wrong, probably right. This is MMA. But I'm going to stick with Alejandro Perez here. And I'll take a decision.
Okay. I will be breaking down Alejandro Turbo Perez, the 29-year-old, is 21-7-1, 7-2-1 in the UFC. He is coming off of a loss by UD to Cody Stamann, and the difference was the wrestling, as Stamann fights are. Alejandro, he's a pretty strong guy since coming to the Octagon. He did have a quick loss to Patrick Williams, who's one of the bigger guys at 135. But other than that, he's really looked crisp, good boxing and speed, and a really nice gas tank. He's mostly a boxer, so I'd love to see some diversity overall in the striking game. I'd like to see a little more, some kicks, maybe to legs, slow down, Yodong's explosive movement. That's one of the keys in this fight, I think. I think he's got a very dangerous opponent in Yodong, and I think this is Yodong's by far his greatest test to date in his career. So I looked for Alejandro to implement a lot of the wrestling that he had used against him with Cody in his own fight here and avoid some of the hard shots early, and then look to kind of take over later as he's tired him out. So I'm going to take Perez for a decision with grappling and the experience, octagon experience specifically being the difference. So
Decent.
I think the fight, but this is definitely one of the guys who I'm a big fan of in this division in overall. So watch out for Perez, I would say. He's probably going to lose here. That seems to be the way it's going lately for me. Is the favorite, and he's a heavy favorite, minus 205.
Ooh, it's a little steep.
Plus 165 for Alejandro Perez.
It's a little steep, but when you hear about Edmund's price and Naurdiev's price, it looks good. But yeah, and maybe a little too steep, but it's minus 205. You could still put that in a parlay. So anyone who's taking your dong,
I'll tell you right now, I'm taking several underdogs on this card.
Okay, maybe a few disagreements then.
This is definitely one of the underdogs I am taking with some confidence, and it is not the only underdog I'm taking. That's for sure. So I will lead us into our next fight, my stake fight. It is Randa Markos versus Claudia Gadelha. And no offense, that's not an offensive term. It's just what this is. I can watch this fight as I'm making my stake. And I don't think I'll be missing too much. So I'll be breaking down Randa Markos out of Michigan top team, I believe still. She's 9-6, and she finally got a submission win on her resume. It was her first finish of her career. She's 5-5-1 overall. Every single one of her fights before her last performance against Angela Hill had gone to decision, either for or against her. And she also has a draw against Marina Rodriguez, where I actually thought she won that fight, but she wasn't overly impressive. She's a decent wrestler and a good grappler, and that's about it to Randa at this point. Not much else. She knows what she is, and she goes in there and tries to implement that, and it's been decently effective. She grapples and just, I think if she grapples and just sticks to Claudia, I could see her getting a decision. It's just hard to say, really, because based off similar opponents and how they matched up, I would have to take Claudia, but that's really not what we've seen the last few outings out of both of these fighters. And I'm going based on recent rhythm, recent performance, and recent results, and that leads me to Randa Markos. So I'm going to take Randa Markos to get a decision win over Claudia Gadelha, who, the more you look into her record and her overall performances in the octagon, especially lately, the more you realize she's a little bit overrated. So I'll take Randa.
Nice. Okay, so Claudia Gadelha comes into this fight 5 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Her UFC career has declined a bit. Like, you look at the fight against JJ, which was a few years ago, the title fight. Since then, she's gone 3-2. So, yeah, you know, her grappling is her strong point. She's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. But then you look at the fight against, like, Carla Esparza. She won that fight. But you look at the 3rd round, and Carla's a grappler as well. And Carla rocked her up and tagged her on the feet. You know, she got away with the win, but, you know, not too impressive. And then you look at her last fight against Nina Anzarov, where she was just, you know, practically beat up on the feet for 10 minutes after the 1st round. So, yeah, I can see what you're saying. Claudia Gadelha, she hasn't been that impressive. Randa Markos, a grappler as well. So stylistically, this is a good fight for both girls because they're both looking to grapple. But the difference could be the striking, and not only the striking, but the willingness to, like, fight. Like, you look at the 3rd round against Carla, like I said, and Claudia didn't look like she wanted to fight. And even against Nina, she like towards the end of the second and the third, there's just no. It doesn't look like there's much heart from Claudia. Obviously, it's impressive when she's able to, take the back of like Carolina and get the quick sub. But this is a tough fight for both girls, and I just think Randa has more willingness to like come forward if it has to be a striking battle. So because of those reasons, I'm going to take Randa to win a close fight. So I'll take Randa via decision.
I was not expecting an agreement there.
Yeah, it's a tough one, though.
Minus 275 favorite for Claudia Gadelha.
Yeah, well, I remember when she was -3 against Jessica.
And plus 215 for Randa Markos. I'm all over these prices, man.
Mm-hmm. Those are two dogs I'll take in a row there.
And because, again, I'm semi-aware of the odds. You can't really stay away from them when you're in our groups and whatnot. But I'm making all my picks straight up before looking at the odds.
Yeah.
And I was picking Randa straight up.
Yeah.
At plus 215, you're damn right I'm taking. And you better take that now because that line will continue to shift closer to pick'em territory. I'm telling you, it opened at plus 300. It's already at plus 2.
Yeah.
I think we'll be in the 160s to 150s by the time the fight rolls around. So
that's five fights we've broke down, 5 agreements. Where is this disagreement coming?
And two of which are pretty decent underdogs. So you want to go ahead and lead us into the next fight here at 145? 145.
We have Gilbert Melendez versus Arnold Allen. I'll be breaking down Arnold. He comes into this fight 5-0 inside the UFC. He was born in Ipswich, which is like literally 45 minutes from where I live. He trains at TriStar, though, in Canada, I believe.
Yep.
Correct. Okay. So yeah, I've been to a few of this guy's fights. 2 in London, 1 in Liverpool. I've basically seen his last 3. And just another guy who's very well-rounded. Like, the best description of Arnold Allen I could give is like, he's a 7 out of 10 everywhere. Like, there's not anything that he does great. He just does everything like the same, if that makes sense. Like, I'm smoking right now, and it probably just doesn't make sense to a lot of people, and it only makes sense to me and you. Like, hopefully it makes sense to you, Brooks.
Yeah, I understand he's not bad. You can describe him as being not bad anywhere.
Exactly. He's a young guy who's up and coming, and he's just well-rounded.
He fights like a veteran too.
Yeah. I mean, the only negative, if you was to ask me, okay, well, give me the negative for this guy. The only negative that I can think of is he was arguably 12 minutes down against Mads Bernal in Liverpool, and he still won. So he had a bad night at the office, and he still won. And that's the only negative I can really give you with Arnold Allen.
Submitted him, right?
Exactly. Front choke.
And Mads Bernal just yesterday won the Cage Warriors featherweight title. So I get that on the UFC, but he submitted Drew. He submitted a good striker and went through some tough spots in there before getting submission. But to submit Mads Bernal is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, 12 minutes down in that fight, and you can still say you won that fight. That's always a good thing. When you're not on your game 100% and you still pull wins out of the bag, that is a decent trait to have. Melendez, obviously, tons of experience, a lot of fight miles on his clock. And I just don't know if he's still got it. A guy, like I said, a guy like Arnold Allen, up and coming and so well-rounded, I'd expect him to do well here. So I'll take Allen to... I'm actually going to take him to get a finish. I'm going to take him to get a submission in round number 2. Okay.
I will be breaking down Gilbert El Nino Melendez. Excuse me.
The hit was real.
37-year-old is 22-7 overall, 8 TKOs, and I could not find a submission win on his record. So when you said I don't know if he has it anymore, I would argue with I'm not sure if he's had it in the UFC. He's 1-5, never quite being able to get back to those Strikeforce days where he had tons of scraps with good guys. He's taken a similar approach in his UFC fights, but it just doesn't work against guys like Benson Henderson or Anthony Pettis or Eddie Alvarez or Edson Barboza or Stevens. But the one thing I can say is the only guy that finished him of those guys was Pettis. So definitely a tough guy, but currently on a 4-fight losing streak. He hasn't fought since September of 2017, and he did just beat Bam Bam Healy in a submission exhibition match.
Mm-hmm.
So it was by decision and was not by a finish, but that may be a good sign. Maybe he tried to improve his submission and grappling game. I don't really know what he's doing. Allen, definitely the lesser known guy, but he's a real prospect at 145. He's huge for the division, well rounded. The thing I'm not crazy about with Allen would be the lack of a killer instinct, and he has a tendency to fall to the level of his opponent at times, and at times cause them to fall behind.
That's fair.
He should, but I'm gonna pick Allen in part because of a great camp, and also I think that he has a tremendously good matchup here against aged and withered veteran in Gilbert Melendez, who hasn't been the same guy in the octagon. So I want to see Allen make a statement here. I keep using the word, but I feel this is a showcase fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid to say it. So I'll say second round TKO for Arnold Allen, who becomes more of a guy after this fight. And the odds are minus 340 for Allen, plus 260 for Melendez. And with how this card is, I guess I'm okay with that. I prefer it to be like minus 275, 200.
Yeah.
But I'll live with that.
I mean, compared to the others, it's not too bad, but maybe a little bit too high again. But yeah, I'm with Arnold Allen, and maybe like one parlay.
Melendez is 1-5, so I know that our good friend Daniel Baca likes to use the old 3-fight losing streak. I'm going to bet on the guy type shit, but this is 4-fight losing streak. So does that mean he definitely wins? I don't really know how that illogic works. I'll have to check with him.
Well, you know who else was on a 3-fight losing streak?
Yeah,
Junior Albini.
Right. Exactly. So now he's on a 4-fight. Maybe that's the new 3-fight.
That's him done. He's gone. Okay.
Either way.
So, moving on to Michael Chiesa versus Diego Sanchez. And I'll be breaking down Mike. Comes into this fight, 7 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. 5 wins via submission. And we all know what Mike wants to do. He's tall, he's long, he's a strong grappler, and he's looking to submit you. Mainly competed at 155 for his whole career, and he was huge there. At 170, he doesn't look undersized, but I do see him having trouble at 170 at some point. I don't think he's going to have trouble here. But having said that, he's only like 3 inches taller and maybe 3 or 4 inches longer. So he's still the bigger guy here, but it's not the same like it was at 155. So yeah, I'd expect him to do well here, Mike Chiesa. Like even in the striking area, I'd expect him to be able to strike and grapple. Having said that, Diego Sanchez is a veteran just like Melendez, but much different. He's still very much going, very capable of beating good guys and even guys up and coming. Like, some people were on Mickey Gall and some people weren't too impressed by Mickey Gall. But he's still a guy who's up and coming, and Diego Sanchez, destroyed him. So
Mickey Gall was a 300 favorite for that fight, I believe, or at least 2.
Exactly. So yeah, I would expect Mike Chiesa to be able to perform well here. But he's got to be prepared for a dirty fight. It could get dirty, and he just has to be prepared and willing to have that fight. So I'll take Mike Chiesa here to get I'm going to say a decision. I don't think he's going to submit Sanchez. He could, but I don't know. I'm going to take a decision.
I don't think you believe any of that. I don't think you believe that pick at all. There was no conviction in your voice, and
This is what I'm saying.
you know who I'm picking.
I
You know
know you're going to pick Diego
exactly who I'm
Sanchez.
picking. I want to know how the hell Chiesa gets the respect of Diego to keep him from smothering him, throwing him to the canvas, pounding him out. I want to know what Chiesa does because he's not submitting a guy who has not been submitted in 40 fights. I will stand by this.
I
Diego
think he
Sanchez,
could submit him.
Diego Sanchez will not get submitted by anybody other than Damian Maia at 170.
Well,
and so I'll say
prepared.
that right now, saying that right now on the podcast. That is the only person at 170 who will ever, if anybody does, ever submit Diego Sanchez. So a little bit about Diego Sanchez. 29-11, 18-11 in the UFC. We were talking about how he was like Gilbert Melendez. There was that point. He went through the 2 first-round KOs, brutal KOs of Matt Brown and Al Iaquinta. Mm-hmm. Everybody was pretty much at that point saying, nightmare's over. Put him, he's sleeping at this point. Let him stay sleeping. He was then awoken as if he was Sleeping Beauty by Craig White with a kiss on the nose, which just awoken this spirit that had already been there with Diego. All of a sudden it was back. And he did not stop pushing forward in that fight and imposing his will, and he hasn't stopped since that fight. He had a brutal performance against White, and then he led that into a fight with Mickey Gall, where Mickey Gall was calling him out, saying he was going to submit him, and he made Mickey Gall look like a child, and Mickey Gall had to say he had kidney disease and everything else. So the real question in this fight is if the length and striking of Chiesa is going to be able to get the respect of Diego. If it can, I can see Chiesa knocking him out perhaps, or maybe getting a decision. But I don't think he has the firepower needed to stop Diego. One thing I'm a little concerned with is Diego's relationship with Jackson Winklejohn at this point. I believe he's not fighting out of there for this camp. So I'll be interested to see the effect that has on his mental game plan and overall tenacity in there. But I've got to take Diego to Mickey Gall. I got to take him to do the same thing he did to Greg White. It's another tall, not a lot of power on his striker grappler. Power on his strikes grappler. So I'm taking Diego. I will take Diego to get I'm going to say a TKO finish in round 3.
Okay. Well, this is what I will say. Craig White and Mickey Gall, I don't believe they're anywhere close to being on the level of Mike Chiesa. As all well-roundedness, Mike Chiesa is a beast at times. At 155, he was a beast at times. And moving up to 170, like I said, I do see him having trouble at 170. But I don't think it's going to be at this fight. Like, Diego Sanchez has a lot of miles on his clock too. And those are really good, impressive wins. But the level of those guys...
Yeah, another thing we've talked about is that willingness and tenacity to keep fighting. And Chiesa's shown at points he's not a big fan of keeping on fighting when he's...
The Pettis fight was quite disappointing.
The Kevin Lee fight too was a pretty big disappointing fight. I'm telling you, if Chiesa is all smiley and lackadaisical and not respecting Diego, that is the worst thing he could do.
It's a good fight. It's a good start. Is that the start to the main card? That is.
I assume so.
Nice. So, and what are the odds?
Yeah, of these odds. They're trying to really get me back into the game right away here. Diego Sanchez plus 280.
That's insane.
I'm hammering that home to everybody. Bet on that. Bet on that.
What's
including you, Leyton, minus 340.
Yeah, a little high. Again, just like Arnold Allen. I'd expect it to be like in the 2s.
75.
Yeah.
I'd expect half that. You're being generous saying you'd expect that in 2.
Yeah.
I asked you had said minus 150 for Chiesa?
That would have been a killer price at minus 150. I would have had him in 3 parlays.
Well, that's doing you a favor by making it minus 340, plus 280 for Diego. I'm all over that. Oh,
Those are pretty insane.
I'm back. I'm back, baby. They have brought me back. I will be doing a double parlay with Sanchez and several of my underdogs because I don't think Sanchez should be an underdog. Period.
Okay, fair play.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the second fight in the main card, and this is another really good fight. We have Luke Rockhold versus Jan Blachowicz, and I'll be breaking down the European Jan. Comes into this fight, 6 wins, 5 losses. Record not too decent. He was on a good win streak at heavyweight before he fought Thiago Santos. But apart from that, some, not too impressive defeats. But yeah, he has some power. He has some strong grappling. I believe he's a black belt. I could be wrong, but I believe he is. Just a nasty kicker. Yeah, he's just a decent 205er. So looking at this fight, Luke Rockhold's moving up. Hasn't really looked the same since the Bisping loss. Even against David Branch, like he beat David Branch, but the first round, some people they got a bit excited when Luke was on the fence and David Branch was throwing a barrage of punches. Got the win in the second round, but he hasn't really looked the same since that loss. So this is an interesting fight. He's moving up to 205. He's a big guy himself. I'd expect him to be the quicker guy here. But the experience of Jan Blachowicz, that could be the difference. I think if he is able to wear on Luke against the fence and just make it that kind of fight, the kind of fight you don't want to fight in your debut, like
this kind of fight.
Yeah. So like Mike Chiesa moving up to 170, he had a decent matchup in Carlos Condit, and Condit didn't really make it. This is what 170 is about. Jan Blachowicz is the type of guy that could make it, ruin the debut moving up to 205. But Luke Rockhold, man, nasty kicker himself. His stand-up is very impressive at times. I just don't know where he is. I know you was questioning, I think it was Benavidez on the breakdown before, where he's at. I'm the same here with Luke Rockhold. I don't know where he's at. He likes to do the model thing. But as a mixed martial artist, man, since that Bisping loss, he has just not been the same. So, he could win this. But for me, if I'm going to take Luke Rockhold, he needs to show me something. Because even the Romero fight, viciously TKO'd. And it looked a little bit similar to the Bisping one, like the follow-up. It was just nasty. So if I'm going to take Luke Rockhold, he has to show me something. So I'm going to take Jan here via decision.
Okay. Fun little fact, I was just browsing through our good friend Sherdog, and one of the headlines on the front page is Damian Maia vies for farewell bout versus Diego Sanchez. This is the second time now a fighter has called out Diego while he's had a fight. And then I would love that fight after this. I would love that fight. I want to see that so badly. Mm-hmm. I want to see that. So a guy who's not afraid to touch Damian Maia. He would run right at Damian Maia. Damian Maia has never faced that in his career. He's always faced guys who are like last night. Trying, stay away. Diego would run at Damian Maia. It may result in an instant submission, but I really hope he beats Chiesa. I really hope you want to see that fight.
That would be a good fight. But Mike Chiesa is it's a tough fight for both guys.
Let's not get sidetracked on Michael Chiesa. We're talking about the Diego Sanchez or bust here. Anyways, I will be breaking down Luke Rockhold. There's not a whole lot to break down about him at 205, as this is his debut, but he is coming off that vicious KO in the third round against Yoel Romero. Although at times where Yoel did try to grapple, Rockhold was looking very strong and successful. Mm-hmm. So it's been getting caught with some strikes where he's struggled a lot. And so for me, the question is, can Jan Blachowicz do that? and catch him on the feet and get him really thinking about it, because I think otherwise, I think Rockhold will not have a strength issue moving up to 205. He'll be the taller guy. He'll be the longer guy. He'll be the quicker guy. And so in his losses so far in the UFC, they haven't been out tactic. They've been getting knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it was Vitor Belfort or Bisping or even almost against Branch, all those fights he almost lost were not a result of being out grappled. They weren't the result of being, out positioned. Even against Tim Boach, a guy who kind of pressed it, he instantly got an inverted triangle Kimura on him. So, he's good. So he's definitely good on the ground. He's comfortable getting taken down as well. So, well, I haven't seen Rockhold at 205 do it yet, and I kind of support that feeling of show me first. I'm going to assume he's going to be able to show me here. So I'm going to take Luke Rockhold, and I think that his power translates up, and he gets a second-round TKO.
Nice.
So,
Second disagreement.
Yeah, I think he has a good performance. I think he gets people kind of excited for Luke Rockhold, who, when he came over from Strikeforce, he was the 185 champ, had just come off beating Jacare, had a lot of momentum, and he put away Weidman and others pretty impressively, and then that weird loss against Bisping started a weird little stretch of the last 2 to 3 years. I think there's a reason. I think Rockhold didn't have to come back, and he chose to come back. And I'm going to take that as encouraging, and I'll take the second round TKO for Rockhold.
Decent. And what are the odds for this?
I mean, these are interesting. Minus 175 for Rockhold, plus 150 for Blachowicz.
That's probably the most fair odds we've had so far.
I think that's honestly spot on. Maybe a little too wide, but it opened at minus 125, minus 105. I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, by far the most fair odds, which is surprising because there's 3 fights left.
Yeah, so that's only our second disagreement, and I'm finally picking a favorite in a disagreement. So I'll move us into this next fight, which is the spot of the fans' main event lately, which is the third fight from the top, which is, in this case, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal versus Ben Askren. I will be breaking down Gamebred. He is 33-13 with 13 TKOs and 2 subs. He's 10-6 in the UFC with several of those losses really, really could have been wins and should have, I think, in my opinion. His best wins being that second round TKO of Donald Cerrone in Denver. I was at that live. Super impressive. He had a first round KO of Till. Obviously, that was very impressive. When he was on his 2-fight losing streak prior in 2017, there were some really close fights. He's actually had 4 split decision losses in the octagon. Masvidal's fight against Maia was super close. In fact, I really thought Masvidal won. And I think that's the kind of fight you can look at to see what we can expect at him versus Askren here. I think that he's become much more confident and suited for 170 since the Maia fight. And I see him really coming into his own and completely ready for Ben's game plan. I also think that Ben Askren getting dominated by Burroughs in wrestling did him no favor, and I think helped his opponents in some ways. I just think it just plants a seed of doubt, I think, even in Askren's mind. So I think Masvidal hurts him, and I think he finishes him in round 1. So I'm going to take Jorge Masvidal to get the finish in round 1 by TKO.
Wow, nice, okay. Ben Askren.
In here.
Ben Askren comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. A former champion in Bellator, a former champion in ONE. So yeah, looking at the debut against Robbie Lawler, I took him to win that round 1 submission. And a lot of people still disagree with that stoppage. And it's funny because the people that disagree with the stoppage have seen the replays, which makes the whole situation funny. Perfect stoppage. The hand goes limp. The hand drops. Robbie Lawler did not choose to do that. I know some people have said he intentionally just becomes limp. I'm not sure why you would. That doesn't work. Yeah, completely went out for a few seconds. If you go out, that's the fight done. A lot of people have trouble with submissions sometimes because you look at Mike Chiesa and Kevin Lee and you see the guy instantly, start complaining and you get a little bit confused. Like, well, that wasn't a submission because he's awake. He's complaining. And, I can see how some people can get confused with that because 95% of the time we see a submission, it's a tap because the limb's getting extended like the arm, or the other, huge percentage of the time the guy wakes up. But there is a small percentage where the guy, it's a head blood choke, right? Where it's your head, is your brain's not receiving the blood, and you can go to sleep like that. You don't have to be choked out and fully unconscious. You can go out and literally pop back. It's
also an intelligent way to defend yourself.
Yeah, for example, it's like stepping on a hose that has water flow, and the water it's not coming out the hose anymore, and you instantly take your foot off the hose and the water springs out again. Sometimes being subbed is like that. So not to spend too much time on that. We know what Ben Askren is. He's an extremely strong wrestler. He has extreme grip strength, superhuman strength. His grip is unbelievable. When he touches you with his body, it's like a blanket. You just cannot get rid of it. It's just like Damian Maia in a sense, but in wrestling terms. And just to go back to what you said about Jorge Masvidal versus Maia, it was a close fight. But I think Masvidal was like backpacked for like 3.5, 4 minutes at one point. And that's just what happened to Tony Martin, man. Like he was like mounted in a sitting position for like 3.5 minutes, and even though you're not landing devastating strikes, that's just Damian Maia down to a T.
One significant strike.
I mean, the position. Sometimes when you hold this position for so long, and you're a high level guy, they just go,
Yep.
You won that round. But when Pantoja held backpack position, the triangle at the back, he held it for about 3.5 minutes, nearly 4 minutes against Dustin Ortiz, and didn't get that round. So sometimes it depends which guy it is that's doing that.
Yep. Back to Askren.
So this is, everyone looking at this fight, you didn't even need a breakdown for this fight. You know what this fight is. Jorge Masvidal is a vicious back street brawler. He's a gangster. Yeah, he's proven that. He did it in front of my own very eyes in London. We know what Ben Askren is. Grappler versus striker. So it goes down one of two ways. Masvidal survives the first round, is able to keep Askren off with strikes and finishes him, or even finishes him in the first round. We saw what Robbie Lawler done. Or Ben Askren does get a hold of a smaller guy here in Masvidal, and there's a huge strength advantage for Ben Askren. And that could be the story also. So it is a fan-friendly fight. It goes down one of two ways. But yeah, we're going to disagree. I'm going to take Ben Askren to get a round one submission again.
Fair enough. Ben Askren is the favorite. No surprise there, minus 225.
I'm surprised. See, I keep going back to Edmund. Like with the 6, I'm surprised it's not more. It could even increase.
Yeah, minus 225 favorite for Askren, plus 175, plus 185 for Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah, it could get a little closer or it could increase. I'm not sure. This card with these lines is just crazy.
Yeah, these lines the last couple of weeks have been a little bit nuts. But either way, I think that's a good fight. And I think Masvidal is going to be really ready. I think he took a lot of lessons out of the Maia fight and fights out of ATT. So he's got, I believe, some good wrestling partners and trainers down there. And he also definitely wants this fight. So I will move us on to the co-main event of the evening. It is a women's bantamweight title fight between Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes. I will be breaking down Holly Holm, the 37-year-old now preacher's daughter, is 12-4, 5-4 in the UFC. Holly's definitely had an interesting, notable career. She is coming off a decision win against Megan Anderson, where she used more wrestling than she ever has. I think she has the tools to win a 5-round decision here, but I'm just not so sure she's able to at this point. I'm not sure she's able to keep Nunes at bay. I'm not sure she's able to tire Nunes out, and I'm not sure she's able to bring anything that Nunes isn't ready for. So coming into the UFC, she had really good kicks. And besides the Ronda fight and the very end of the Betch fight, she kind of has not been using them as much, and they've kind of disappeared a little more. So in this fight, I think she's got to use those kicks, and I think she's got to hit Amanda and stay moving and try to get Amanda tired. That is definitely used to be the weakness of Amanda, was she kind of had gas for 2 to 3 rounds. So I certainly can see that happening. I think that this is not a great matchup for Amanda. I think that Amanda needs to get a hold of Holly early and hurt her in some ways, slow her down a little bit. I'm predicting Nunes to be efficient here and assertive in this fight. And I think that her power is the difference, and it leads to a round 2 TKO.
Nice. Okay, Amanda Nunes comes into this fight 10 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Arguably the best female fighter the UFC has seen. I took her against Cyborg, like I said earlier on. A lot of people told me I was crazy, but now she's champ. This fight, it's a decent fight. Holly Holm I'd say she was 2 rounds up against Cyborg. And then Cyborg surprisingly won round 3, 4, and 5, which you'd think it would be the other way around. So my question is, Holly Holm, great boxer, turned into a great kickboxer. Like you say, the kicks, there's not many of them there. I would say that's due to the fact she doesn't want to get hit. She doesn't like getting hit. So
right.
You look at the Cyborg fight, and the first 10 minutes were very good. The circling, the movement, you'd expect her to be the quicker mover. The movement was very nice, and she was 2 rounds up. But then, it kind of crumbled from there. She started getting hit a bit more. There was less strikes from her, and she ended up losing a decision. So I believe Holly Holm could outpoint Amanda Nunes. It's just a question of how long can she do it for. Now, I see it being a similar fight in Holly Holm circling and trying to outpoint her, but Amanda Nunes I'd say she's quicker than Cyborg, and she's more technical. She's definitely a more technical striker, and we've been proven that. So to say that Holly Holm's going to outpoint Amanda Nunes and she couldn't outpoint Cyborg, I just don't see it. Maybe she wins 1 round, or maybe even 2, or comes close to winning 2 rounds, but I think Amanda Nunes is far more technical than Cyborg, and it's going to be harder for Holly Holm to do what she tried to do against Cyborg and try to do it here. It's going to be much harder. So yeah, in some world, I could see Holly Holm outpointing her, but for the most part, I think Amanda Nunes is going to close the door and land strikes. She could finish her, Amanda Nunes, but I'm going to take a decision.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think part of Holly Holm being 37, 38 years old, cutting down to 135 still, it does get more difficult for female athletes as they get into their late 30s to cut that weight. Amanda Nunes still in her early 30s. So I think that the 10 pounds less could affect Holly Holm's durability also. So, but we'll see. I think Nunes may not want to test her gas tank as much. That is one of the parts that is a question mark for her. So, yeah, the odds are minus 325 for Amanda, plus 250 for Holly. With this kind of card, that's about right. I think it should be no more than that. I think it should be about the odds of like Claudia Gadelha and Randa Markos, 275.
Yeah, I mean, minus 340 is like I said, she's arguably the best female fighter the UFC has seen, so I can see why she's getting those odds, but it is once again a little bit too high.
All right, you want to lead us into the event of the evening?
It's time. Okay, so main event: John Bones Jones versus Thiago Santos, and I'll be breaking down Thiago Santos. Comes into this fight 13 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Spending the majority of his career at 185. He was a huge middleweight. And now he's 3-0 at 205. Okay, so since moving up, not undersized at all at 205. He looks great at 205. Impressive fight against Eric Anders. Decent finish against Jan, put a stop to that streak. And just, he's crazy. Thiago Santos is crazy. He's very explosive. He has very decent power. He's very tough. He's just a crazy fighter, man. He's a black belt. His kicks to the body is just like, it's like seeing 3 baseball bats put together or something. Not even one. Like, it's like a multiple base bat kind of thing. So yeah, the problem is he's fighting arguably the best to ever do it. I'm just speaking about Amanda Nunes, and she's the greatest to ever do it with the females. Jon Jones, in my opinion, is the greatest to ever do it. Most people would disagree, like because of the steroids and a lot of stuff outside of the octagon. But I'm speaking purely inside the octagon. Like, he's the best to ever do it, in my opinion. He's a great wrestler. He's got elbows, knees. Every single kick he has, in his arsenal, he just switches it up. His movement is perfect. His conditioning is great. Reads the opponent well. IQ, just brilliant. So the way I envision Jon Jones losing, it wouldn't be technique for technique. We've seen it. Like, you go in there and you try to go technique for technique and read Jon Jones, and you're just completely outclassed. The way I see Jon Jones losing would be through explosion of power, and that is what Thiago Santos is. So yeah, that's the only real way I see Jon Jones losing. I think this is a far tougher fight than Smith and Gus, and I think it's even a tougher fight than DC. I know a lot what DC brings to the table, but like I said, the way I see Jon Jones losing is explosion, and this guy brings explosion. So yeah, really good fight. But like I said, Jon Jones is the best to ever do it, and until I see it, I can't take it. Not at the moment anyway. So I'm going to take Jon Jones to get a TKO in round number 4 on a tired Thiago Santos.
All right, Jon Jones, where are you at? John Bones Jones, 24-1. Dana White doing his damnedest right now to switch that 1-0. Currently, I don't know if you heard about this, but he's trying to challenge the downward elbow disqualification against Matt Hamill of Jon Jones.
Yeah.
And it happened like 8 years ago. Just like, come on, man. Anyways, I mean, I agree it wasn't a loss, but just who cares? We all know who the best player in the world is.
We all know he hasn't lost.
Yeah, exactly. 10 TKOs and 6 subs in his 24 wins. Really, it's 11 TKOs. I mean, what can you say about Jones? He's in the octagon. He is the best to ever do it. That is definitely something you can and should say about him. Mm-hmm. He's beat Machida, Vitor, Gus twice, Cormier twice. Believe it or not, according to people, it seems like Daniel Cormier has won 2 fights against Jon Jones somehow. Yet, according to the results, he's lost both of those, one of which by KO, another by unanimous decision. Yet people are still begging Jon to fight Daniel Cormier again. It's crazy to me. Obviously, I think this is one of the tougher tests for Jon. I think the way that somebody theoretically could likely beat him is through power and athleticism, which Santos has. Jon just looks so calm coming into this week, so sure, and not in a cocky way, but just so sure of himself and how he's going to perform here. And he just, he's got it all. I think he could have this be a stand-up war, and he could win it. And I don't think he's that dumb. I think he uses takedowns, gets some ground and pound. And I think that Santos is tough, but I think by round 3, this is a TKO for Jon Jones. And that's what I'm taking. And I'll be honest, my last 6 fights of the night, I'm aware I picked TKO in. So I'm expecting an action-packed main card. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. I'm expecting a lot of finishes in this one. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Some of these could really go to decision, but the way I see it, I think that there could be potential for a lot of KOs. I think I have 8 KOs overall out of 11 fights. So I would say that picking a lot of these fights not to go the distance wouldn't be a bad choice.
There's definitely a few that could be put together not to go the distance, for sure.
But yeah, I got John Jones. I watched an interview with him before coming on here where he said when I read the headline, I was like, this doesn't sound good. Then I listened to it. He said he wished he was a little more nervous for this fight. And it wasn't anything against Santos. He said it wouldn't matter who it was against at this point. He's like, I am sure of myself. I know it. I've been here before. I just want to keep fighting, keep staying focused on being the best in the world. He's fighting 4 times this year, and this year will probably be the year he gets in the least amount of trouble because he's busy and he's focused. And he looks really good coming into the week. I just have a hard time envisioning a former 185er being the one to dethrone Jones, but I do respect Santos. It's hard to pick, and I get it. John Jones, he's the real deal. So the odds are not. I don't think he's the biggest favorite on the card.
Yep, he's not. -6, right?
No, -600.
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, we're going to get that with John Jones. You look at the odds with Smith.
-900.
Yeah, and against wait, that was against Smith, right? -9.
I opened at -9 against Santos.
Wow. Okay, what about Smith though? What did that end? Like -9?
Yeah, it ended at -9.
Yeah, so you're only going to push down this guy's price so much. Like even with Cyborg, yeah, like -3 or nearly or something like that against Amanda. Yeah. There's only, you have to realize John Jones is never going to be an underdog, and the underdog price for John Jones is probably like -250. So -6 is a bit deep, but at the same time, that is a big step down from Smith. And like I said, this is a much tougher fight.
Yeah, and he's getting better odds. So I think the odds makers and bettors are aware of that too. What would you put the odds at? What would you put the odds at for John Jones versus Francis Ngannou if it happened tomorrow?
I think he'd be a minimum of -3, a minimum, and that's basically underdog odds or pick'em odds.
Would you bet on Ngannou? I know this is ridiculous hypothetical.
It could happen, man. That really could. That fight could happen, and I would. If you said to me now, would you bet on that fight to happen? I'd say that fight definitely happens before John Jones is done. That happens. It has to, right?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple more fights at 205 I want to see. I want to see Johnny Walker. And if he earns...
Even if Rakic keeps climbing.
Yeah, Rakic. These taller, athletic guys who can match the tools and have the little more tenacity than Gustafsson, maybe. No offense. Fight of the night, though. Let's see. I mean, I feel like I have a lot of choices here. 11 to be exact. But I will say Jan Blachowicz versus Luke Rockhold.
Okay.
Or actually, I'll say Diego Sanchez, Michael Chiesa. And by fight of the night, I really mean performance of the night by Diego Sanchez.
Well, that's fair play, but if you was to ask me what my fight of the night is, I'm going to say that fight's crazy. I'm gonna say Mike Chiesa and Diego Sanchez is going to be a great opener for the main card.
Yeah, I think that it's wild, and if Diego wins, I have to see Diego versus Maya. I have to.
That would be a great fight.
It's a hardcore fan's delight, and both guys should retire after the fight. I love the late resurgence of Diego Sanchez, though. He's a guy who I was a fan of for a decent amount of his career. Then, I'll be honest, kind of fell out of favor with me. And this last part of his career, the Craig Wright resurgence really has. I've been all for it, man. It's been great. Decent. So I'm predicting an action-packed fight card, a lot of finishes. I have 8 TKOs in this that I have, or 8 knockouts happening. So
before this podcast, do you remember how many times I told you we're going to disagree?
You said 3 times.
We disagreed 3 times.
Yeah, and you had no idea which fights we were going to disagree on, because I don't think
I get a feeling
at all. Did you think I was going to pick Masvidal?
No, I didn't. I thought you was going to pick Yadong, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought you knew how I felt about Alejandro. But
Yeah, he's
anyways,
really good.
this all can be saved for off of YouTube. Chico says, "What's up?" Enjoy the fights, everybody. We've appreciated. We got a ton of new subscribers in the last video, so I think a little bit of the multiplex mob came through, and others. But we just keep trying to organically grow this. We are grateful to be blessed with nonstop cards until November. I believe we have one weekend off, and on top of that, we are doing the Contenders series. So we don't care if those get 10 views. We're going to keep doing them. But they aren't 10 views. They're just, a little more niche. But just a reminder, those are all there. So when you're doing your research coming up, when these guys make their debuts, you can stop back and check those out. They'll be in a playlist. And as always, predict your 5 fights, the method of which you think they are finished in the round, one of which being how you think John Jones wins this fight or whoever you have in the main event. And again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. The comments have been really awesome. They don't all have to be positive, but we appreciate just good feedback and decent comments. If you're looking for someone to pick all the favorites, just go to the odds page and pick all the favorites. You come here for our breakdowns, I hope, and a little bit of the banter. It's all about the passion now. And with that diatribe, I am out. Enjoy the fights, everybody, and thank you again.
Yep, appreciate you all, guys. And just like Brooks said, Contender Series every Tuesday, and that's going to be uploaded in like 2 days' time. So if you are a fan of the Contender Series,
it's off this week.
Yeah, we do it every week. So
well, it's dark this week though. There's no Contender Series this week.
That's true. There is a week break. Okay, so yeah, peace, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Peace out.